Billionaire and his son see a poor widow with her babies alone in the snowstorm, until he says, "Come with me." What happens next is unbelievable. The snow fell heavily onto the empty road. The wind pushed the flakes against the black SUV's windshield, creating white swirls that made visibility difficult. Daniel Whitmore drove slowly, his hands steady on the wheel, his eyes focused on the yellow line he could barely see beneath the layer of ice. In the back seat, Noah swung his little legs and hummed softly. 5 years old, messy brown hair, curious eyes that missed nothing. He pressed his face against the window, watching the storm as if it were a spectacle made just for him. "Daddy, the snow is really high," Noah said, his voice full of wonder. "It is," Daniel replied, without taking his eyes off the road. "That's why we need to go slow." The blizzard had started suddenly. They were returning from a routine doctor's appointment in the neighboring town when the sky darkened and the world turned white. Daniel thought about pulling over, waiting for it to pass on, but the road was deserted and there was nowhere to take shelter. Visibility was terrible. Every turn demanded total attention. The silence inside the car was almost comforting, broken only by the sound of the engine and Noah's gentle humming. That's when Noah shouted, "Daddy, there are people there." Daniel instinctively slammed the brakes. The car skidded slightly before stopping completely, the tires fighting against the ice. "Where? Noah!" "There!" The boy pointed to the shoulder of the road, his little finger pressed against the cold glass. Daniel narrowed his eyes and saw it. A small figure, hunched over, half hidden by the white curtain of snow. A woman. She was kneeling by the side of the road, her arms wrapped around something against her chest. The wind whipped her dark hair, and even from a distance, Daniel could see that she was trembling violently. "She's all alone in the snow, Daddy," Noah said, his voice worried. "She's going to freeze." Daniel hesitated. He wasn't the kind of man who stopped for strangers. He had learned over the years of building his empire that kindness could be dangerous, that people lied, that intentions were not always what they seemed. The business world had taught him that with brutal clarity. But then the woman lifted her head, and Daniel saw her face, pale, exhausted, desperate. There was no pretense there, just pure desperation. And in her arms, 2 tiny children, babies. "Daddy, she has babies!" Noah was already unbuckling his seatbelt, his little fingers fumbling with the clasp. "Noah, wait!" But the boy didn't wait. He opened the door and ran out into the snow, his heavy blue coat flapping as he fought the wind trying to push him back. Daniel cursed under his breath and got out after his son. The cold immediately cut into his skin. The wind pushed the snow sideways, turning the world into a white blur. Daniel had to strain his eyes to see. Noah was already close to the woman, kneeling in the snow next to her, completely oblivious to the danger of the cold. "Ma'am, are you okay?" The boy's voice was muffled by the wind. The woman raised her eyes to Noah. She was trembling violently, her whole body shaking. Her lips were a dangerous purplish color. In her arms, wrapped in thin and completely soaked blankets, 2 tiny blonde babies with bright eyes tried to cry, but the sound barely escaped their minuscule throats. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse and broken. "Help. Them. The babies. Please." Noah looked at the babies, and then, without a second thought, began to take off his own coat. "Noah, no!" Daniel shouted, reaching them and holding his son's arm. "You'll freeze!" "But they're small, Daddy," Noah said, completely ignoring his father. He pulled off the coat firmly and placed it over the 2 babies, covering their trembling little bodies with the still warm fabric. "There, now you'll be warm." Daniel stood still for a second, looking at his son. 5 years old, just 5 years old. Such a simple gesture, so pure, so completely free of calculation or hesitation. So, right. Something shifted inside Daniel's chest. He knelt beside the woman. Close up, she looked even more fragile. Soaked clothes clung to her body. Hands chapped from the cold, her fingers nearly blue, deep-set eyes filled with a fear that went beyond the cold. It was the fear of someone who has already lost everything. "What happened?" Daniel asked, taking off his own jacket and placing it over her shoulders. She shook her head, unable to form words. Her teeth chattered so much she couldn't control it. She just squeezed the babies against her chest and began to cry silently, tears rolling down her frozen face. "Daddy, we have to take her with us," Noah said, urgently tugging on his father's sleeve. "She's going to die here. And the babies too." Daniel looked around. There were no houses, no lights. There was absolutely nothing but snow, wind, and biting cold. The road was deserted. If he left her there, she would truly die. And the babies too, there was no doubt. He took a deep breath, feeling the cold air burn his lungs. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand to the woman. She looked at him with suspicion. She didn't take his hand. She just hugged the babies tighter, as if she thought he might snatch them away from her. "I won't hurt you," Daniel said, keeping his voice firm but gentle. "But if you stay here, you'll freeze, all of you. Let me help." The woman looked at the babies, at Noah, who smiled at her with that innocence only children possess, at Daniel. And then, with a tired and hesitant movement, she accepted his hand. Daniel helped her up. She could barely stand, her legs shaking so much they almost gave way. He held her arm firmly and began to guide her toward the car. Noah ran ahead, fighting the wind, opening the back door. "Sit here, ma'am," the boy said, trying to help however he could. The woman got into the car, trembling so much it looked like she might shatter. Daniel carefully took the babies. They were so light, so impossibly fragile, and handed them back to her. Noah got in on the other side and sat very close, as if wanting to share his own body heat. Daniel got into the driver's seat, turned the heater up high and started driving. The silence inside the car was thick, heavy. Only the sound of the engine, the wind outside, and the woman's ragged breathing. She didn't speak. She just looked at the babies, checking if they were breathing, if they were alive, touching their little faces as if she needed to confirm they were real. "What's your name?" Noah asked, breaking the silence. The woman took a long time to answer. When she spoke, her voice was so low it almost got lost. "Clara. I'm Noah, and that's my dad, Daniel." Clara nodded slightly but said nothing more. Her eyes returned to the babies. Daniel looked in the rearview mirror. She looked terrified, not just of the cold, of fear, of something deep he couldn't identify. There was a tension in her shoulders, a rigidity that went beyond physical discomfort. "How old are they?" he asked, trying to keep his voice neutral and calm. 6 months, Clara replied, her voice trembling. "Are they twins?" "Yes, Oliver and Lily." The names left her mouth with tenderness, as if they were the only thing she had left in the world. The babies began to cry softly, weak and exhausted sounds. Clara rocked them, murmuring words Daniel couldn't hear, mother's words, whispered promises. Noah reached out and lightly touched Lily's tiny hand. The baby stopped crying for a second and looked at him with those wide, clear blue eyes, still confused. "Hi, Lily," Noah said, smiling. "Don't cry. You're safe now." Clara looked at Noah and yawned for the first time. Something like gratitude crossed her pale face. The drive to Daniel's house took 20 minutes. 20 long minutes of snow, heavy silence, and ragged breathing. When they finally arrived, the house loomed in the darkness like a fortress of stone and glass, lit by warm lights that violently contrasted with the icy white outside. Daniel parked in the garage and turned off the engine. "Let's go inside," he said. Clara hesitated, her body tense. I can't." "Yes, you can," Daniel cut in, his voice firm but not aggressive. "You and the babies need to warm up. I'm not going to argue about this." He got out of the car and opened the door for her. Clara looked at the house, big, imposing, a world completely different from hers. She looked at Daniel, at the babies, and then, slowly, she got out of the car. Inside the house, the contrast was brutal. Immediate warmth, soft light, welcoming silence. Daniel lit the fireplace in the living room, the flames beginning to dance and illuminate the room. He spread thick, soft blankets on the large sofa. "Sit here," he said, guiding Clara to the sofa. She sat down, still holding the babies close to her chest, as if they were the only real thing in the world. Noah ran to the kitchen and returned with a fluffy blanket he dragged across the floor. "I got the warmest one I could find," he said, carefully throwing the blanket over Clara and the babies. Daniel went to the kitchen. He prepared hot chocolate in 3 mugs. He came back and handed one to Clara, who held it with still trembling hands. "Drink it," he said. "It will help." Clara brought the mug to her lips and drank slowly. The warmth went down her throat and she closed her eyes for a moment, as if feeling life return to her frozen body. Daniel sat in the armchair across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. He didn't come too close. He didn't invade her space. Noah settled on the floor near the babies, watching them with pure fascination. "They're little, aren't they, Daddy?" "They are," Daniel agreed, without taking his eyes off Clara. She hadn't relaxed yet. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes always alert. Even with the warmth, with the apparent safety, she looked ready to run away at any moment, like a cornered animal. "For you are safe here," Daniel said, his voice low and firm. "You don't need to be afraid." Clara looked at him. There was something in her eyes, old pain, deep distrust, exhaustion that went beyond the physical. "Why did you stop?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He looked at Noah, who was now making funny faces at Lily, trying to make her smile. "Because my son asked me to," he said simply. Clara followed his gaze and saw Noah, the boy who had taken off his own coat to cover babies he didn't even know. The boy who was now humming softly, rocking Oliver in his lap as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. Daniel merely nodded. The night wore on slowly. The snow continued to fall outside, heavy and relentless, covering the world. Inside the house, the fireplace crackled, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. Clara drank the hot chocolate until it was finished, but didn't completely relax. She changed the baby's diapers with mechanical, careful movements, fed them with the little she had in her soaked bag, and rocked them until they fell asleep in her arms. Daniel brought soft pillows and more blankets. He prepared the guest room with clean sheets, but Clara refused. "I prefer to stay here," she said, pointing to the sofa. "As you wish." He didn't insist. He didn't ask invasive questions. He didn't promise anything he couldn't deliver. He just ensured she had what she needed and stepped back, respecting her space. Noah was the last to fall asleep. He settled onto a makeshift mattress Daniel prepared near the sofa, insisting he wanted to stay close to the babies. "Daddy, we saved them, right?" he asked, sleepy, his eyes already closing. "We did," Daniel replied. "We did the right thing." "Yes, Noah, we did the right thing." The boy smiled and finally closed his eyes, sleep quickly taking him. Daniel went up to his own room, but didn't sleep. He stayed awake, sitting in the armchair near the window, watching the snow that wouldn't stop falling. He thought about the woman downstairs, the babies, the fragility of it all, the strangeness of having strangers in his house. He didn't know what Clara was running from. He didn't know what had led her to that empty road, alone with 2 babies in the middle of a deadly blizzard. But he knew one thing for sure: she had nowhere to go. Downstairs, Clara wasn't sleeping either. She held Oliver and Lily against her chest, feeling the warmth of their little bodies, hearing their soft, regular breaths. It was warm. She was safe. But she didn't trust him. She couldn't trust him, not yet. She looked around the room, the fireplace, the paintings on the walls, the books on the shelves, a whole life of comfort that she had never had and never would. A world that wasn't hers, that never would be. Tomorrow she would have to leave. She couldn't take advantage of that man's kindness. She couldn't become a burden. But for now, just for this one night, she allowed the warmth to envelop her. She allowed the exhaustion to pull her down. She allowed herself, for a few precious hours, not to have to fight. Her eyes began to close, but she fought against sleep, always alert, always protecting. Even in safety, even in warmth, she couldn't completely lower her guard. Outside, the snow continued to fall relentlessly. Inside the house, 3 destinies silently intersected, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same. The morning light filtered through the windows, soft and white. The snow had stopped during the night, leaving the world outside covered in a thick silence. Clara woke up startled, her body tense, her eyes immediately searching for the babies. Oliver and Lily slept peacefully beside her, wrapped in blankets. They were breathing slowly, their little faces relaxed. Safe. Clara sat up on the sofa and looked around. The house was silent. The fireplace had died down overnight, but the warmth still lingered. She could hear sounds coming from the kitchen. Footsteps, the clinking of dishes. She got up carefully, checked the babies one more time, and walked toward the kitchen. Daniel was making coffee. He was wearing a simple shirt and jeans. He looked different from the night before. Less formal, more human. "Good morning," he said without turning around. "Good morning," Clara replied, her voice still rough. "Coffee, please." Daniel poured 2 cups and placed one in front of her. Clara held the cup with both hands, feeling the heat warm her still sensitive fingers. "How are the babies?" Daniel asked. "Good. Sleeping." He nodded and took a sip of his coffee. The silence between them was uncomfortable but not hostile. Clara knew what she had to do. She needed to thank him. She needed to leave. She couldn't abuse that man's hospitality. He had already done too much. "I'm leaving after coffee," she said, looking down at the cup. Daniel looked at her. "Where to?" The question caught her off guard. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came out. She didn't have an answer. I'll figure something out." "Figure something out how?" His voice wasn't aggressive. It was direct, practical. Clara felt tears burn her eyes, but she held them back tightly. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I can't stay here. You've already done too much." "Do you have family?" "No." "Friends?" "No." "A home?" Clara shook her head. Daniel put his cup on the table and crossed his arms, thinking, "Do you have anywhere to go?" Silence was the answer. Clara felt her chest tighten. She had spent the whole night thinking about this, planning, but all the plans led to the same place, nowhere. "I have nowhere to go," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I don't have a home, I don't have family, I don't have anything." The words came out like a painful confession, like admitting defeat. "I'm a widow," she continued, wiping away a tear that escaped. "My husband died, and since then everything fell apart. I lost the apartment. I lost everything. I was on the road because I had nowhere to stay with Oliver and Lily." Daniel remained silent, processing. Clara stood up quickly. "But I'll figure it out. I always do. I just need a few hours, and I'll leave here. I promise." "Sit down," Daniel said, his voice firm. "I can't take advantage." "Sit down, Clara." She sat, more from exhaustion than obedience. Daniel took a deep breath. He looked out the window at the snow outside. He thought about Noah. He thought about the risks. He thought about all the reasons why he should say no. But he also thought about the babies, the blizzard, the coat Noah had taken off without hesitation. "You can stay," he said. Clara stared at him, incredulous. "What?" "You can stay. For now." "I can't accept that. Do you have a better option?" Clara fell silent. "For now?" Daniel repeated, making it clear. "Until you get organized. Until you can find a job, save money, find a place, but with clear boundaries." "What boundaries?" "You take care of your children. I'll take care of mine. The house is big. There's space. But that doesn't mean we're a family. It means you're safe while you need to be." Clara felt something release inside her chest. Relief, fear, gratitude, all at once. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Daniel took a moment to answer. "Because Noah taught me yesterday that sometimes we just need to help, without overthinking." He stood up and took his cup to the sink. "The guest room is ready. You can move in there today. It has a bathroom, closets, space for the babies. Use whatever you need." Clara couldn't speak. She just nodded. "And Clara," Daniel looked at her, "it's not charity, it's survival. Yours and theirs." He left the kitchen, leaving her alone. Clara put her hands over her face and cried in silence. For the first time in months, they weren't tears of despair, they were tears of relief.